Technology. And it says we are live, Trevor.
Yep, that's fine. It's still saying 30 odd seconds on Facebook, but maybe that's just we'll probably go live shortly there as well, Stuart. But...
Terrific. So let's start by welcoming everybody to today's question and answer session about the Sell More Stuff Challenge, and also welcoming those of you that will watch this later on the pre-recorded video, because I know not everybody's able to make it, but I do think there are quite a number of people that are now beginning to look at these and get the interest from them. So welcome if you've not been able to see us live and you're waiting to see us later on this afternoon. So we hope you're going to get as much out of this. Just remember, if you can't post a comment now and get your question answered, you can always post a comment later, and Trevor or myself or one of the other two coaches, Dudley and Lucy, will get onto those questions and we'll come straight back to you. So this is your resource. This is your time for you to give us your challenges, your questions, your thoughts about the Sell More Stuff Challenge, and in general, what you'd like to hear. And so that's the offer for you to come out and do that. Trevor, I don't know if there's anything else I can possibly say about that, is there?
No, I think you're quite correct there, Stuart, and I think it's sort of a milestone for us that we've passed the 250 mark of new members. Seen from the Facebook private page this morning that you have extended a welcome to them, and I would like to do the same and hope they really enjoy this 5-day challenge. I'm sure actually they will, because there is so many great references back from it. We've had so many good reports. So we'll just add to your sentiments, Stuart, and welcome them and hope they enjoy it fully.
Terrific. Well, so for today's challenge discussion, I wanted to just kick it off by introducing something which is not strictly part of the 5-day challenge, but a bit like Dudley did on Monday, if you saw that, when he wrapped sort of a lot of the things about the 5-day challenge and why the 5-day challenge is so important to overall business growth. I thought I'd just bring one thing to the fore. So I'm going to bring up one of my presentations now, and I'm going to stick that up in the main bit of the box there, Trevor. So hopefully you can see that nice and loud and bright. And what I want to do is I want to talk about why you should qualify your leads better up front. Now, I know that a lot of us don't want to actually do this, because the very last thing we want to do is put somebody off. But, one of the problems that we have as business owners, and particularly this is true for people that are in business with small teams or on their own, is there is basically just 24 hours in a day. And if you want to put in some sleep and you'd actually like to see elements of your family and friends, that's going to take even more time away from your business. So one of the things that I'm always saying to people is, for goodness sake, make sure that you're only working with real good quality leads, because why if you maximize the sort of people you're talking to, if you're only talking to the people who are really good quality prospects, then you will be more profitable and more successful. Trevor, I don't know, that's my experience. I know I've often found myself chasing after a prospect or a lead, and then discovered I've wasted days, possibly weeks of my time, when I could have been chasing after somebody else who was really properly qualified and qualified into my sales process.
Absolutely, Stuart. And I think there's nothing worse than actually spending a lot of time with one business who you probably find out down the line that they weren't really interested anyway. So I'm looking forward to your presentation. I know that I use a series of situation questions, which helps me, but we'll maybe talk about more of that later, Stuart, when you...
Well, what I was going to do is I was just going to talk generally about sort of exactly that prospect. You can't afford to waste your time on poor prospects. You must spend your time with good prospects. And you should let your follow-up and sales conversion system take care of prospects who aren't ready to buy and nurture them until they're ready to buy. And that's part of what we talk about in the rest of, where if you were to spend some time after the 5-day challenge examining what's in the rest of the sales accelerator programs that people like myself and Trevor run, we will talk to you about how to automate your business and how you need to put in systems and processes in place, which means that somebody who isn't quite ready for your service at the moment, somebody who is at the moment poorly qualified, can be made to be a better prospect by nurturing them till they're quite ready. So let's just go into some of the things that I wanted to talk about. So what do you do? Trevor sort of just alluded to it there. If you want to qualify your leads better, how do you do it? And one of the ways you do it is you ask them questions. And Trevor alluded to it. He was talking about situational type questions. So what are the sort of questions that you need to ask? And if I remember rightly, when I put these slides together, I think I've got sort of 9 sort of situational questions that I'm going to sort of take you through at the moment. So they are things like this. What are their full contact details? Well, okay, this seems fairly obvious, but I don't know how many times I've come across somebody when I've talked to one of my coaching clients, asked them about this, they fail to get something really vital, like the company name, if that was relevant to them, or the full address and postcode. And then they turn around and say, oh, I've got to deliver something to them. I'll have to call them up and find their postcode because I forgot to capture it. You know, get all the information you need up front when you first start talking to them, because that way you look like you're a professional. When you actually engage with them in a professional relationship, you're not then going back and asking for sort of silly details that you should have captured before, because people will often think, well, how professional are they and should I be working with the company? And then the next thing I say is, what's the size of your business? Now, if you're selling a high value product or service, small businesses may not have the budget for your product or service. So it's better to find out now rather than spending several hours or weeks necessarily meeting the prospect, after which they discover they can't afford your product. Now, this was very true. I had a client of mine who was a wealth consultant, and he said to me, I can only really afford to actually deal with clients who have got £250,000 of spare capital. Do you think I should ask them out front, or should I not put my prospects off by asking that question? And I said, well, if that's important, do so. Ask them the question up front, but don't naturally just put it as, I can only deal with you if you've got 250,000. Start asking questions around the sort of concept of how much do they want to invest, because you'll find that people will realize that some of their valuable assets that they thought were not part of their wealth profile are part of their wealth profile if you ask the questions in the right way. Trevor, I don't know if you've got comments on that, but that's certainly something that I can remember having a discussion with Miles about, and suggesting to him he thought differently about, rather than just putting it out there, I'll only deal with you if, but asking a question in a different way to try and get the prospect to recognize they needed to discuss what their true assets were, rather than just starting off with the blank, you can only afford me if.
Yeah, I think that's maybe going back to the issue of, does the business owner really understand their own business? And sometimes I have found that they believe that they're in a totally different marketplace than what their business really is. And it's that disjointed nature that can bring surprise to the actual business owner, and understand exactly, A, what he is offering, and B, who he's offering it to.
Yeah, and you know that you've said it right there, because a lot of these questions, you can only really start to form the sort of questions you need to ask your prospects if you have done your 5-day challenge, because unless you have done your avatar and unless you understand what your uniques are, you can't form the questions that you need in order to target your prospects and get them to answer these sort of questions, because you could be asking questions that are completely irrelevant. As I've just said there, if you're selling to a business, you need to know the size of the business. In order to do that, you have to have done your work on your avatar. None of this stuff comes without doing that 5-day challenge, without first of all starting with, who's my customer? What is their pain? So let me go on to the next thing that I was just going to bring up. If you sell to consumers, where do they live? What type of accommodation do they live in? That sort of thing. Sometimes you need to know that, because obviously you need, once again, to judge whether or not you can reach them for your service. If you're selling a physical product and you need to deliver, or you need to be able to get to them something, you need to understand what some of the obstacles might be behind that. And then next, if you sell to the business, what's the title or responsibility of the prospect? Now, this one is a really critical one if you're selling to a business person. There is no point in selling something to somebody who doesn't necessarily have the power to, I've hit the wrong button there, that somebody that doesn't have the power to buy your service. You need to reach what we call the decision maker. Trevor, this is something that I guess you and I have faced on a number of occasions. If you're talking to the person that doesn't have the budget, if you're talking to the person that doesn't have the desire to buy, you are wasting your time.
Absolutely, and I think that that's one of the things whenever you're looking for your clients, it's so important to actually not just to be sending any correspondence or whatever to an info or just a general address. You want to actually find out who is the decision maker in that business, and that's the person that you want to correspond with and have your opportunity to speak to.
Absolutely right. So the next one, and this is an interesting one, but I know sometimes there are people that get very nervous about asking this sort of question, but I think it's a really good question to ask. How many other people has the prospect contacted? Now, you might think, well, one, that's a bit cheeky, and they may not want to tell you, and indeed they may not. But if they've contacted 4 or 5 competitors, are they just on a sort of fishing exercise, trying to get pricing information? You don't want to be competing with others on price. You need to be competing with others on your differentiator. Once again, you need to have done your 5-day challenge to understand what's your unique differentiator. If they've only contacted you, on the other hand, you know that they've really focused in on what they think is the value you're going to add to their business. That gives you a huge amount of information about where you lie, if you like, in the pecking order of the prospect, what they think are they sort of important things. If they're doing a fishing exercise, do you want to put more time in to try and convert them, or do you want to turn around and go, okay, interesting prospect, may not be right, put them into my nurture system and get them ready for the next time they're looking, so that I don't necessarily waste a lot of time. If they've only contacted you, you know that you might need to put a bit more time in and spend time with them in order to be able to bring them through from prospect through to a landed client.
Yeah, and the differentiator is so important, Stuart, because whenever you have your differentiator organized and it's strong, then it makes it less likely that your competitors will be able to compete for the business that you're now winning.
Yeah, Trevor, I absolutely agree. The differentiator on this one is really critical. Okay, so this one is one that I know many people, when they're in this situation, are so afraid to ask. And once again, it is a really critical question. How soon are you looking to make a decision? You know, if the answer to that is in 3 months' time, well, you know that you've got 3 months to either sort of give this more information to the prospect, or that you've got 3 months before you can actually be landing the contract or whatever it is you're trying to sell them. If they're looking to make a decision today, that means you've got to be structuring your call to action in a different way. There's no point in saying to them, let me have the order at the end of a conversation or at the end of an email, if they turn around and say, no, wait a minute, I wasn't thinking of asking I wasn't going to give you the order today. It's going to be something that we're going to award in 3 months' time. So it structures your call to action. It structures your follow-on actions. It makes the whole process different. So really get down to the grit. How quickly are these people, this person, whoever you're talking to, looking to make a decision? And then structure your call to action and all your follow-on actions around that piece of information.
Yep, that's very, very good advice. And I've had it from 2 extremes. I've had it from somebody who was looking to make a decision yesterday, which obviously they weren't well enough informed maybe to do so. And I've had somebody who wasn't looking to make a decision for 3 to 6 months. And as I say, really, you have to find that out. You have to find out when they are prepared to make the decision.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. So, next one, find this one out. Were they recommended to you? If they were, once again, if they were recommended by a customer, a friend, colleague, the chances are they are warm. These are people who know about you. They understand already what the value you bring. And if they were recommended to you, find out who recommended you, because then you can go back and use that information about what you know about that person that you have either dealt with or been working with in order to be able to understand the context, the sort of what they understand about you. Once again, I think too often we're afraid to ask a question like this. We think it might be personal, we think it's cheeky, but it's not. This is just getting information which you need in order to be able to build the picture, understand exactly how the person thinks, and then structure your whole call to action, your social proof, and everything else around what it is the prospect knows about you.
Yeah, that's brilliant. And I mean, there's nothing better than to have somebody speak to you who has been recommended to you, because they have probably questioned the person who recommended you. They know probably so much about you, and really they're prepared to say, yes, we want to work with you. Now let's look at my individual business and my individual details.
Agreed. Absolutely agreed, Trevor. Absolutely agreed. Okay, we're on to the landing straight here. Are they happy with their current provider? Now, this is one that you might want to put as close to the top as you like, but I like to leave it once I've gathered some more information. If they've got somebody already, what are they unhappy about? Because the one thing you can bet your bottom dollar is if they're unhappy about that, that's something they're going to be looking for in whatever you're providing to them. So make sure you understand exactly what their current situation is and what their current issues might be, and make sure those are things that you address with them. And then, what's their address? If it's really critical, and it should have been something you should have captured right at the very top. If you haven't captured the address, then make sure you get it. Make sure that you've got all the information you need at that point. So, Trevor, I don't know. That's pretty much where I got to with this. I'm going to throw it open for you to give us some of your thoughts about this. How do you do it? I personally like to use things like forms, which after I've first contacted a customer, I send them a form with some of this information on and ask them to complete that form. And that way I can then start to judge how I engage with that prospect. But it's something that I do. I make sure that I'm qualifying my prospects because my time is valuable. And if they're not ready to buy, I need to know that as soon as I can.
Yeah, that's correct, Stuart. And one process that I have used many times has been called BANT, B-A-N-T. And the B stands for budget. So obviously it has to be within their budget and what they can afford to invest monetary wise within this. The A is for authority, which actually you brought up. The authority is speaking to the right person who has the authority to make a decision. The N is for need. And obviously, the business, the person you're speaking to has to have the needs. Now, a lot of the time, they might not realize that they have the need for it, but you have to get agreement that there is a need there. And again, as you mentioned as well, T was for time frame. What is the time frame? Is it something that we need to be working on urgently for whatever reasons? Is it time which we have more time to work within? So I would just suggest that BANT, B-A-N-T, is a quite useful process for this, Stuart.
I think that's a great one, Trevor. I think it pretty much sums up a lot of what we've just been talking about. And I'll try and make sure that I put that into the comments so that people can remember it. But B is budget, A is authority, N is need, T is time frame. That pretty much gathers everything you need to understand about your prospect. If they can answer those 4 questions, you've got a huge amount of information there. I just add to that somewhere, and I'm just trying to think if it goes into to the BARNT or something like that. But that recommendation, if they were recommended to you, that also helps you to understand whether or not you've already got a lead in there. So I'll put that into the comments so that people can get that. BANT is the way of sort of trying to make sure that you've asked all of those questions, and a little bit like we were talking about before. When you're into the discussions or email or whatever with your prospects, For goodness sake, don't be afraid to bring this sort of thing out. This is vitally important that you don't waste time with a customer or a prospect. Timescale is so critical for this. If you are spending too much time with a poor quality prospect, you are reducing your ability to proceed with customers or prospects who really have got an immediate need, an immediate time frame, want to work with you, and you need to capitalize upon those immediately. Trevor, I don't know, have we got any comments at the moment on Facebook?
No, there's not the comments at the moment. Now, we have a number of people who's joined us, and I've asked them to make a comment or a question, but maybe sometimes, Stuart, I think that whenever you're actually giving a presentation, people like to concentrate and focus on what is the information that's coming across. So as you quite rightly say, they can ask us questions anytime, the next 5 or so minutes, but as importantly, they can type them into the box anytime. And I think that's a bit, quite a bit the questions as well, Stuart, is that I believe it's a very good process to develop the questions that you want to ask before you actually meet the client, the authority, or whatever you want to call them. And there's so many different questions. You know, there's situation questions, there's problem questions, implication questions, payoff questions. There is so many questions. And as we were speaking, or as you were speaking on Monday evening about practice, I believe that you should take time, work out the number of questions you want. These questions should always be open questions. And you would want to practice the questions that you are going to ask, so you can draw out as much information in as short as possible time as possible.
Yeah, and like you say, Trevor, I mean, for me, I have these written down, but I also have a form that when a prospect does contact me, I send them the form and I just say, look, I appreciate that you are keen, but I just need to get myself in the right frame of mind in order to be able to understand your needs. Can you answer a few simple questions? And it takes nothing more than a few seconds to answer those questions. And what I do at the end of that is I just say, look, thanks for answering them. Even if we don't get to work together, I'd like to offer you something as a thank you for going through the process. So as a thank you for answering those questions, I give them a small thank you gift, which is just emailed out to them. It's actually a sort of a small ebook, and they get that ebook, and it's a thank you for spending the time. Even if what I learned from it is this is a prospect that now needs to go into my system in order to be nurtured until they're ready, or if it's a prospect which isn't quite right for me, I might find, for instance, that they are right for a colleague or somebody that I know would actually suit them far better. By gathering that information, I'm able to pass them the information and go, you know, we're not quite right for each other. I don't know as much about what you need as perhaps somebody else does, but I do know somebody can help you. And that gives me the ability to deliver far more to potential prospects than just saying, well, let's just start work and let's hope we can muddle it through somehow.
Yeah, that's excellent advice, Stuart. And I also believe just there's another small piece of advice is to keep a data profile. Whenever you're actually speaking with one of your target markets, whatever it be, have a profile of that particular client, your avatar, but also have data and keep on what questions you have had asked and how they were answered, and how maybe some of your questions might be different for the next time and might actually gain more knowledge. So I keep a profile on various target markets, and I can assure you I learn from each and every one of them.
Yeah, and you know, you bring up that really important point we talk about a lot on these calls, Trevor. Test, test, test. You can never go wrong by throwing an idea out, seeing what works, learning from it. I mean, I think I read very recently that most people sort of are afraid of failure, but actually there's no such thing as failure if you learn from it. So if you think, you know, your first set of questions don't quite hit the mark, that's fine. Learn from it. You can't fail if you've learned something from it, and move on to the next one. I think.
Yes, and sorry, Stuart, to interrupt you.
I was going to say, I still don't think we've got too many questions, so I won't keep everybody hanging on if they've got to go and get their lunch, because I know it's nearly 1 p.m. here in what is it at the moment? A fairly miserable December day in 2020. I'm looking forward to the summer coming back.
Yeah, well, just to say that Dudley had joined us at the start, and he was just saying that the BANT is an excellent way of summarising the key qualifying process.
Yeah.
And you said you would put it up. Just a wee bit of tidy keeping here is to say that you have actually along the bottom of your screen kindly offered a scientific marketing makeover, and your website address is there. So if anybody wants to do that, please feel free to do so, or indeed with any of the other mentors, Dudley, Lucy, or myself. And can I maybe conclude, Stuart, with saying that the next Q&A will be next Monday evening at 7 p.m. Greenwich Mean Time, and I will be hosting it. And Lucy, I'll have the pleasure once again of having Lucy as my co-host.
And Trevor, once again, if we just sort of say, I know that some of the people have not been able to join us live. So if you're going to be joining and watching this later, just remember, not only can you put questions into the comments, but you can post a general comment or question. We'll be more than happy to engage and pick that up and answer those questions. Trevor, myself, Lucy, and Dudley are very active on the forum. We're there. We're available pretty much whenever you need us, and we're always trying to engage and answer any questions you've got. So please come back with your comments. If you've tried BANT, then let us know how it went. We'd love to know how you were able to think differently about your prospect rather than sort of just engaging with them, how you were able to rethink whether or not you have got the right information from them before you engage, and then if necessary how you qualify them out of your process because they weren't quite the right prospect for you. They didn't have the budget to work with you, they didn't understand your service well enough, your product well enough, how you were able to educate them. Just give us some feedback on that, because we'd love to help you to refine that process. Use us as your test. We'll more than happily qualify as guinea pigs for you, so that if you want to be able to sort of test out your questions on somebody, throw them into the forum. We'll be more than happy to give you some feedback and make sure that they're doing the right job for you.
Great. Thank you very much indeed, Stuart.
No problem, Trevor. I look forward to Monday evening. I know you. I know you and Lucy provide almost as much entertainment as you and I do.
We look forward to it, Stuart. Thank you very much indeed.
Speak to you all very soon. Thank you.